look for, we'll begin looking at a Ramban today. I sent it out, I hope it got to everybody as a handout. It's a Ramban in this week's Parsha. We have two Parshas. In the Chumash here, we talk about this Ramban every year. This year is no different. For those of us who live in Eretz Yisrael, and for those of us who don't and should be here, the Ramban in this week's Parsha, Parshas Mates Maseh, and Parshas Maseh, the Torah says in Perek Lamed Gimel, Pasuk. Get to it. Okay, Perek Lamed Gimel, Pasuk Nun Gimel, chapter 33, verse 53. V'horashtem es haaretz, v'shaftem ba. You should conquer the land, chase the goyim out of the land, and live there, settle there. Conquer the land and settle there. Ki lachem nasati es haaretz l'reshes also. Because I have given you the land to inherit. This is your land. Go conquer it. Go settle it. The Ramban, like the Rambam, will use the English so that it's clear. Maimonides, Nachmanides. We know that there are 613 mitzvahs in the Torah. How do we know that? Because the pasuk says, Torah tziv alanu Moshe morasha kilas Yaakov. The Gemara in Makkah says that the gematria of Torah is 611. Tuf is 400. Vav is 6. Reish is 200. Hey is 5. Altogether 611. Torah tziv alanu Moshe. Moshe commanded 611 commandments. The first two commandments in the 10 commandments, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am your God. You shall not have another God. We heard directly from God at our Sinai. Moshe didn't tell us the first two commandments. We heard directly from God. So Torah tziv alanu Moshe. Torah 611. Moshe commanded us. Anochi and Loyia. God commanded us. 611 plus 2 equals 613. So that's sort of a number etched in stone. That's a Gemara. The number 613. When you read through the Torah, you can come up with different calculations of 613. I'll give you one simple example, Parshas Kedoshim. The beginning of Parshas Kedoshim says, Kedoshim to you, you shall be holy. That sounds like a commandment. You shall be holy. Okay. If that's one of the 613 mitzvahs, what do you do to be holy? Is there a Shulchan Aruch in Hilchos Kedusha? What do you do exactly to be holy? So people say, if you want to be holy, you have to do a mitzvah. Well, I have the mitzvah of matzah, that's a separate mitzvah. I have the mitzvah of sukkah, that's a separate mitzvah. I have the mitzvah of mezuzah, a separate mitzvah. So what does it mean to be holy? So you can read a Sefer Torah and come across the word Kedoshim to you, you shall be holy. Is that one of the 613? Or is that a statement by God, you shall be holy? And how will you be holy? By doing the other mitzvahs. So you can count Kedoshim to you as one of the 613, or not count Kedoshim to you as one of the 613. If you count Kedoshim to you as one of the 613, fine. If you don't count Kedoshim to you as one of the 613, you only have 612. Now you have to find another pasuk in the Torah that talks about a commandment. And so the numbers sort of are juggled. Everyone has 613, and different Rishonim wrote books of how to count to 613. Maimonides wrote of Sefer HaMitzvahs, how to count to 613. Nachmanides, the Ramban, wrote a comment on Maimonides, and his commentary on Maimonides is, Maimonides should have deleted these statements because they are not commandments, they are statements. And since now I'm missing some, you should insert the following to make the 613. So whatever amount Maimonides removed, whatever number of mitzvahs Nachmanides removed from the count of Maimonides, Nachmanides then had to find other psukim in the Torah to insert to come back to the 613. One of the mitzvahs that the Rambam, Maimonides, does not count in the 613 mitzvahs is the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. He doesn't count that as one of the 613 mitzvahs. Blinet we'll talk about tomorrow. The Rambam in Hilchos Malachim has all the halachas about Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. The Rambam says a person has to live in Eretz Yisrael. He's not allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael except for certain reasons. The Rambam says that a person should live in Eretz Yisrael in a city that is all goyim, rather than live in a city in Chutz La'aretz, in a city that's all Jews. The Rambam quotes all the halachas from the Gemara at the end of Ksubis about the mitzvah of living in Eretz Yisrael. If the Rambam quotes all the halachas that you have to live in Eretz Yisrael in his Hilchos Malachim, why didn't he count it as one of the 613 mitzvahs? We'll discuss that tomorrow. But for right now, the Rambam did not put into the 613 the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, and the Ramban, Nachmanides, says, Rambam, you should have put in the mitzvah of living in Eretz Yisrael. And we'll start reading the handout. And this is Nachmanides' comment about the mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael. Mitzvah Dalet. Shenitztavinu loreshes haaretz, and the mitzvah to live, to conquer the land, and live in the land is in this week's Parasha Maseh. We just read the pasuk. You shall conquer the land and settle there. That means there are two distinct concepts in this mitzvah. Conquer the land and live in the land. It doesn't necessarily mean if the Goyim give you the land, live there. That's not what the pasuk says. The pasuk says, we don't ask for permission. The pasuk says, V'horashtem es haaretz, you conquer the land, v'shaftem bo, and you shall live there and settle there. And one of the mitzvahs is to chase. Either you're going to have a war with the Goyim, to chase them out of the land, or they'll voluntarily leave. The Gemara tells us, Hagugashi Pina, one of the 7 nations decided to voluntarily leave Eretz Yisrael and not fight a war. That's fine. But the mitzvah is to conquer. And I'm not making a political statement now about sovereignty, not sovereignty. The mitzvah in the Torah is conquer the land and settle there. Ramban. Shenitztavinu loreshes haaretz asher nosen hakel yis'al lavosein lavom litzel v'Yaakov. The mitzvah in the Torah to conquer the land that God gave to our forefathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. We'll talk about this B'nai tomorrow as well. The Ramban makes a point here. It's not just about conquering the land and living there. It's conquering the land that God gave to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That is our connection to this land. It's the land given to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and therefore it's our Yerusha. Now, Nebuch Le'aleinu, how many machlokes are there in the best of families about Yerusha? Who's getting what and how much are people getting? And Nebuch, the father or the mother, passed away, and then there's all kinds of machlokes, Nebuch Le'aleinu in the family about who's getting what. And the Ramban is pointing out to us that Eretz Yisrael is our Yerusha. The Torah in Parshas Boy, in Parshas Va'era, calls Eretz Yisrael a Moirasha. It's our inheritance. So Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And so the Ramban says we have a commandment to conquer the land that God gave to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. V'loina azva biyad zulaseinu min ha'umos. We are not permitted to leave any part of biblical Eretz Yisrael in the hands of any nations of the world. Sovereignty. I'm not talking about the stuff going on today with political issues and sovereignty. But there's a mitzvah to have Jewish sovereignty on the biblical borders of Eretz Yisrael. Oy l'shmama. The same way that we're not permitted to allow Goyim to have sovereignty in Eretz Yisrael. When we have sovereignty in Eretz Yisrael, we're not allowed to leave it l'shmama. We're not allowed to leave it desolate. We're supposed to make Eretz Yisrael beautiful. You have a garden floor apartment, make the garden pretty. We don't leave it l'shmama. We beautify Eretz Yisrael. This is our inheritance. This is God's land. This is the Eretz Asher Hashem Lokecha Doresh Isa. Plant a tree, plant the Sheres Hamina, plant some grass, plant some flowers, make it beautiful. We're not allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael in the hands of Goyim, and we're not allowed to leave it shmama. We're not allowed to leave it desolate. V'hu amroi lahem, and this is what is meant when God spoke to the Jewish people. This week's parsha, this week's pasuk, v'rashtem es haaretz v'shaftem ba, ki lachem nasati es haaretz l'reshes isa, v'snachaltem es haaretz asher nishbati la'aviseichem. Upirit isa lahem b'mitzvah zukula b'gvuleo mitzareh k'mo she'ama Uvo haramoni vel kol shchena barora bahor v'shvel v'negel v'chor hayom. And that's why in Parshas Maseh we get all the biblical borders of Eretz Yisrael. Again, when I say biblical borders, we're talking about the 7 nations. We've already discussed that Avraham Avinu was promised that the Bris Bein Absarim and Parshas left for 10 nations. The Torah only talks about 7. 3 nations are left for Yemos and Mashiach: Keni, Kenizi, Kanoni, Ammon, Moab, and Edom. Okay. We'll stop here for today. So this week's Parsha, Parshas Maseh, according to our Ramban, Nachmanides, the famous Rishon, who everybody learns Gemara with Rishonim, learns Ramban. You don't skip Ramban, as difficult as the Ramban is on Shas. A Ramban is Ramban, Nachmanides. Ramban comments that there's a mitzvah in this week's Parsha Maseh, and it's the mitzvah to conquer Eretz Yisrael and to settle the land and not to allow any of the biblical boundaries of Eretz Yisrael to remain in the hands of Goyim or to remain in a state of desolation. This is a mitzvah that comes up in the 3 weeks, this week's Parsha. It's a mitzvah we can think about. It's a mitzvah we can go out and work on. I'm not telling anybody to pick up weapons and to start conquering the land. That would be a whole separate discussion. And we have, Baruch Hashem, an army that has a job to do that. Unfortunately, there are people that don't let them do their job. Ezras Hashem, they'll be able to do their job very quickly, Per Yameinu. But we also have a mitzvah, Shelo Yeh L'Shmoma, don't allow it to remain desolate. Go out and beautify the land. Beautify the land by planting. Beautify the land by coming to settle here. The more Jews that live here, the more beautiful Eretz Yisrael looks. All Yidden that need Yeshua should have Yeshua. All Yidden need Refuah should have Refuah. All Yidden need Nechama should have Nechamas. All Yidden need Brachas, whatever the kind of bracha, they should get their brachas. Yeshua's Refuah's Nechamas brachas only can come from the Rebbeinu Shalom through the shliach that he sends at the time he sends it and the way he sends it, and that's his plan that we accept. It's the Echad Yaakov Yuchad, that's the Gilui HaYichud that we can do in our lives as we absorb this kind of thinking and make it a pattern of our thinking. It's part of the Gilui HaYichud that helps us, and it's part of the Gilui HaYichud that helps bring Mashiach. Everybody remain cautious in what you do, where you go, how you go. And bleib gesund, sei gesund. Tomorrow morning, the Shia begins at 9 o'clock. Bli neder with Sefer Yeshaya. Everyone have a wonderful day.